founder of Turtlewasp Studios and the creator of its first game, Polysemous. Welcome to this video tutorial where we'll learn how to play this epic game. Let's jump right in. Now in this video we're going to be looking at moving, warping and enacting events. How do these mechanics affect you? Well, moving is the only mandatory action you will take every single turn. Warping is how you will access the different boards of Polysemous. And events are how the boards will interact with you, the player. So let's look at how to move, how to warp, and how to enact events. How to move? Well, to move you simply roll the movement dice and roll the amount moved in the traditional board game fashion. You cannot stop short and must move the amount rolled. Now movement dice is different from board to board, but generally speaking a 1d4 is used to move across Polysemous. Now depending where you end your movement, you may need to enact an event. Not all boards enact events this way. Some enact events at the end of every one of your turns while you inhabit that board, and other boards will enact events if you land on certain tiles. You can also avoid unwanted events by moving away from the tile that ordinarily would enact the event for you. Players can only do this though if they have certain traits or items that would allow them to move in this manner. Players must, however, enact the event the tile they finish their turn on, if there is an event to be enacted there. Now, as stated before, you must move the amount shown on the movement dice. There are some exceptions to this rule, and one of the most common exceptions is using portals. So to use a portal, a player can either travel onto it, like interacting with a normal tile, or they could travel over it, and instead of moving their full amount, use the portal. At this point, a player would state which board they are wishing to travel to. This can include the very board that they're currently on, warping back to that board. Now the player will roll something called a warp roll here. Now a warp roll is a d6 dice. If they roll a 2 to a 6, they warp successfully and travel to the board previously stated. If, however, they roll a 1, their warp roll has failed and they travel to a random board using the random board dice roll, which is also a d6. Refer to the rulebook to see which board is what on the d6. Now immediately after warping, whether or not their warp roll was successful or unsuccessful, their turn is over and they cannot do any other actions. So, let's do an example, shall we, of these 3 rules. So, I am currently on end rail and it's my turn, and as it is mandatory, I must move. So I roll the movement dice and I roll a 3. So I move myself in a clockwise direction around the board, and I land on a tile called Dr. Dagora, which is not good for me. I do, however, have an item that will allow me to move 1 square back, so I use this item. By doing this, I have avoided Dr. Dagora, the unwanted event at this location, and I move back to a tile that is safe for me. It is the end of my turn now, there's nothing else for me to do, and play goes around to the other players and comes back to me, and it is my turn again. Again, like always, I roll movement dice. Now, it is key to note that movement doesn't have to be the first action in your turn, but it is the only mandatory action in every turn. So, I roll the movement dice, and I roll a 7. So I move myself 7. Now I should move to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, the port. However, I want to use the portal. There's one of the few tiles where I can end my movement early and use it. I'm going to do that, so I'm going to stop on the portal. Now, I state the board I want to travel to, and I want to travel to Homestead. So, I roll the warp roll dice. In rolling this dice, as long as I roll a 2 to a 6, I travel successfully to Homestead and move my player piece there. If, however, I roll a 1, then I must warp to a random board. And I've rolled a 1. So, I now do the random board roll and roll the dice. And I've rolled the lair. So, I now take my player piece and I go to the lair. Since I have now warped, my turn is immediately over and there's nothing else I can do. Some lore associated with this rule set is that each board exists on a different world and have been specifically chosen by the Council of Polysemous. The only similarity each board shares really is that they're each on a 3-dimensional world. Mortals cannot use the portals that do connect these boards to one another. In fact, they do not even know that they exist, except of course for your loyal followers. Well, that's moving, warping and enacting events. I hope you learnt a little bit today. Of course, there is more to these 3 basic principles, but this should give you the fundamentals to understanding how to play Polysemous and get you going. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you for watching. I hope you learned something new today. If you need any more rule clarification or have any questions at all about Polysemous, please comment below. And if you'd like to learn more, you can find us on YouTube and Facebook. Farewell.